Yes, guys, this is Five Inside. You're here with myself, Rio Ferdinand, and the man, the myth, the warrior, the man with the news, David Ornstein. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, Rio. I'm in shock to an extent, but it's just seismic news.
What is going on? Jurgen Klopp has announced that he's going to be leaving Liverpool at the end of the season. My phone, I came out, took my little boy to football training this morning, right, for an hour. I came out, I must have had about 130 messages. I thought something really serious had happened in life. For a Liverpool fan, it has.
Yeah.
But as a footballer, I was thinking, wow, this is crazy. Like, why have we got here? I've seen the interview, and it looks like it's down to, like, he's worn out. He's tired. He needs a break.
First and foremost, it was I remember where I was moment. I think we're all going to have that recollection because it's seismic news within the industry, within sport. I thought when I broke the news the other night that Man United were appointing Omar Barada as chief executive, that was big. But this is colossal. This is what everybody's talking about. There are people ringing in the radio in tears, Liverpool fans in mourning. It's just like, it's absolutely sort of earth-shattering within our world. And the reason I said I'm in shock to an extent is that I didn't know that it was coming today, the timing. We didn't know that he was actually going to be announcing his departure. However,
so had you heard mutterings of this already, Dave?
Not mutterings that it was actually happening, but if I cast my mind back to last summer, there was a feeling that the race was pretty much run. And if this season had gone anything like last season, it was possibly a matter of when, not if, he was going to go. And although he was under contract until 2026, and I'll come on to speak about that in a bit, entering the 2023 to 24 season, there was uncertainty around a lot of players. And I think many of them saw this as the sort of final push for 1 year through to the Euros. At that point, I think Jordan Henderson would have thought that. Virgil van Dijk, who would be out of contract in the summer of 2025. Trent Alexander-Arnold. Mo Salah, even though he wouldn't be involved in the Euros. Fabinho, Roberto Firmino. I'm not saying the final push for them like they were about to leave, but the final push for this era, this group, this collective under Klopp that he had built and nurtured. And as it happened, 3 of them left, Henderson, Firmino and Fabinho, and 3 of them have stayed on. But those 3, unless they can agree new contracts, they are going to be going into their final 12 months in the summer of 2024. And
Who's
then
Salah,
Virgil van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold. And there has been no development on talks over a new contract, which maybe could have set alarm bells ringing in its own right. Why haven't they moved? Was there something happening? Was there some uncertainty? If Liverpool were able to, maybe they should have moved quicker, because perhaps those players will have uncertainty even more so in their mind now that they know the manager is going to be leaving. But to get back to your original question, and we'll come onto some contract stuff after, genuinely, the conversations that I've had with contacts and throughout the industry is that he's tired. There's not some secret reason here. Maybe we'll never know the exact timing with a week to go in the transfer window. Maybe people were getting wind of it and they didn't want it to leak elsewhere. They controlled it really well. Nobody had a sniff from a sort of journalistic point of view. But he's given a lot. There was the suggestion that it might have been his final year anyway. There was all the rumours around the time of the Germany national team job that they wanted him, and they might feel that there was some ability to at least talk to him. If not now, then maybe in the summer. There was the regeneration of the team, all the players that had left, the new players that had come. And sort of the more you think about it, you kind of understand his reasoning. It's clearly a very draining job. But my goodness, the monumental change we're about to see at Liverpool. If you thought Man United was the hottest ticket in town and the most newsworthy club, and it still is, to be fair, what about Liverpool? They're going to need a new manager, a new coaching team, and a new sporting director, because Schmadtke's going at the end of the January window too.
I have to say, before we get into this, I've got to say, look, like, as an ex-Man United player, we had continuous battles, and the rivalry between us and Liverpool was like something that was always going to be there. And that fire blew hot the whole time I was there. And it's still similar now. It's a little bit different now I've retired, but I want to see Man United do well, not Liverpool, if I'm brutally honest. But I have to say, he's a manager that has come into a rival team, and it's hard not to like him.
Yeah.
He's got such a great character, a personality. He's got charisma. He sees the game in a really, really nice way. He put that rock and roll terminology to the Premier League. What he's done here in clawing Liverpool back into a position of challenging for everything, bar last year, has been nothing short of remarkable. I think that he's put Liverpool in a ridiculous place now, considering they hadn't won the league, 30 odd years. Yep, and then he's the one that brings that Premier League title to Anfield. The way that he galvanised a group of players, got them playing. You hear the way that these players talk about him. Jordan Henderson especially, I've heard the way he talks about him, and it's like a second father. It's like somebody who's brought them together when they're down. He knows exactly what to say to pick these boys up. He knows when they're in these moments when they've lost big moments. They lost the league to on a ridiculous amount of points to Man City. They lost Champions League finals. And this manager, when you hear the players talk, is like, I was out, I was dead. But the manager said something. Jurgen Klopp said this, and it got me back in, and that was it. Give them the ability to go and win something the following years. So he's obviously going to be remembered as an absolute legend at the club. And yeah, I understand. Football is an emotional game, and there will be fans very emotional about him leaving because, like I say, whether you're from his club or not, he's a very likable person, and you got to say there's a little element of class that's come with the way that he's decided to leave as well. Made it early, decided that he's going to break the story, no one else. And you have to respect that.
Yeah, I respect it immensely. I agree with everything you've said. And we don't want to bang on for too long, but it is fair to sort of pause and reflect on what he's done here. So this is a club that was not long out of Hicks and Gillette and the mess they were in. And then on the pitch, Brendan Rodgers did well, but they were the nearly men. With the Gerrard slip and missing out on the Premier League title, will it ever be their turn? Will they ever get a better opportunity? And he arrives on the 8th of October, 2015. I remember that because it was my first son's first birthday. And he immediately felt to the manner born like it was a glove fit. There's similarities in what Dortmund have, the chemistry there, the atmosphere, the fans. It was the Kop, it was the right appointment. It was the only appointment. And immediately things started to pick up. They reached the European Cup final, the UEFA Cup. And then they started to challenge. I'll always remember how the style of play came on, how the atmosphere came on, the connection with the players and the fans. Like, he was born for that club. And I was at the Champions League final in Kiev against Real Madrid, which went against Liverpool. It could have been so different if Salah hadn't suffered that shoulder injury at the hands of Sergio Ramos. But they galvanized and they went again the next season and they won against Tottenham in Madrid. I'll always remember the fans congregating on both cities, and Kiev was a lot harder to get to, like a religion. It was just Liverpool fans everywhere, any means to follow Liverpool and follow Klopp's talented team. And let's not forget, there are some really important people there, like Michael Edwards at the time, like Mike Gordon on behalf of FSG, the owners. They managed to do some good trading, especially with Coutinho leaving.
I would say that the common theme and the common thread throughout the success and stability of the football club has been him, though. He has been the mainstay. Like, they've won everything but 8 of the competitions available to him in his time there. Like, it's from where he's come from. He has been the talisman in that.
He's been the absolute talisman. I don't think it's easy for everybody to work with him, and I don't say that in a disrespectful way. I think he's very exacting.
What do you mean?
I think he has ridiculously high standards. When you speak to people around the club, like many of the best managers, he's stubborn. There's a lot of pressure in that training ground, in that club, because of his expectations. And I don't think that always creates the easiest environment for everybody that has worked with him. And I'm not saying that as any disrespect. I think everyone involved would acknowledge it. And many people should be saying thank you for that, because it has brought them to the level that they're up now. And I would probably say the same about Pep Guardiola, I imagine, too. But it's impossible to sort of overstate the impact of Jurgen Klopp. If you go on from that Champions League final that I mentioned, they then break their duck in the Premier League against a club in Manchester City that is a Goliath. There's no one compared to them in terms of their infrastructure, their facilities. People have said it's a nation state that that clubs like Liverpool were competing against, and they managed to do it. And then the toll it would have taken on Jurgen Klopp during COVID, where he lost his mother and he could barely even fly back to Germany because of the travel restrictions. And they had a really difficult January window. Do you remember when they were searching for a centre-back in the absence of Van Dijk and Joe Gomez and Matip? Everyone was getting injured. They brought in the lad from Preston. They brought in Kabak. They didn't have a good season. Then they tried to rejuvenate with Konate, and they brought themselves back to competitive levels. Last season, not so good, but this season he's rebuilt again, and they're looking pretty good. They're competing for 4 trophies. But you're right. There does feel a bit of class, and I'm hearing things like the timing would allow people to plan, and not just Liverpool in terms of their appointments, but staff.
But the timing,
families,
David.
getting kids into schools, all of that sort of stuff. He's
timing, David. Does it? Could that derail the season for him? Could it distract the season? Could it distract from they're capable of winning 4 trophies at the moment? Could this be? It can go one or two ways, can't it? It can either distract them or it galvanizes them, and they go, right, this is something to aim at now, and we put our foot on the pedal now together.
Well, so as I understand it, the players are in shock. They received the news in a meeting at the training ground addressed by Klopp. They didn't know, from what I'm hearing, until this morning. And so that's how closely guarded it was, even from some people who should know these sorts of things. And so fair play. And so it may take a bit of time for the playing staff, the staff around the club to digest it. But I can only imagine it will actually galvanize them to send him off on a high. There's players who have got important months ahead now. The 3 who we just said there, who are going to be entering their final year. They've got new players who are really progressing nicely. So I'd be very shocked if there was any kind of downturn. The one thing you would say is there's likely to be a lot of speculation over who the next manager is going to be, and that's going to engulf Liverpool for a few months yet.
Who's your money on? I'm going to go Xabi Alonso.
Yeah, everyone's talking about Xabi Alonso. I think we need to bring a bit of context to it. There are some suggestions that he wants to do another year at Leverkusen, although that was his thinking, is being reported in some places, although that's not official or set in stone. He's also got a title campaign to try and maintain right now with Leverkusen, and so Liverpool will want to be respectful of that, and I don't know how easy it will be to hold negotiations and talks. It's not too dissimilar to when Man United were going through the process. They had one candidate in Pochettino who was available, but the other in Ten Hag who wasn't, and that made it more complex. They went for the one who was in work, and you find ways of holding these talks at the right moment. So I'm sure Xabi Alonso will be in the frame, but there will of course be others too. They've got a blank canvas. It's not like there's somebody lined up. All the conversations we've had so far is that this is where the process begins. Now, of course, they would have had ideas in their minds and people who work within and around the club who were privy to this possibility. If you're doing your due diligence properly and forward planning, Brighton do it all the time. They do groundwork on coaches and managers in a not too dissimilar way to what they do on player recruitment. And so Liverpool will know the options available. People will start mentioning foremost coaches in European football, like De Zerbi's building a great reputation. A lot of people, and I'm not saying this is a Liverpool candidate necessarily, but a lot of people speak very highly of like a Thomas Frank with his potential, his style of play. There will be a number of coaches around Europe now who will come into the frame.
Dave, what about the players, Dave? I mean, like I've got to look at it from a player's perspective as well. When Alex Ferguson left Man United, when he did, which again was a bombshell at the time, I was at the end of my career. So it would have been easier, I think, when I look back for me to have left. Robin van Persie signed. He had been there a year, won the league, and signed for Sir Alex Ferguson, was devastated. Yeah. Like the younger players, etc. So I can see that with the Nunez's, the Jotas, etc., sitting there going, well, I came here for Klopp. Yes, I want to play for Liverpool, but Klopp was one of the reasons I came. So making sure that those guys aren't destabilised is going to be a big thing. But the likes of Salah, Trent, Alexander-Arnold and Virgil, who are in the primes of their careers, this is going to be a huge moment for them because they're going to be freezing in the end of this season. They've got 12 months left on their contract. They're going to be open to talking to clubs soon. The club have got a lot of work to do, I think, to really nail those three down, because probably Trent not so much, but Salah and Virgil, this is prime time moment for them to go and get the big bucks somewhere. And if they're not careful and they don't employ the right person quick enough, this could become a problem for them in the spine of that team.
Yeah, and let's be clear, this is a guy that is absolutely adored by the players, like he is the supporters. And when I said difficult to work with, I meant that in a healthy way. So it's going to be a cataclysmic loss to the club, the environment, and its people, as you say. One thing I would point out, and with total respect to Klopp, is that most of those players should be appealed by Liverpool and the club that signed them, its reputation, its style of play, its fan base, and so on. And we haven't heard of many players at Liverpool who are only there for Klopp, whereas you do hear that with some clubs. Like, I only came because of Pep Guardiola. But I don't remember hearing players talk like that for Klopp. He's just part of the complement. And so if you can present a compelling replacement to some of these players, it will probably enthuse them. They've got them on good contracts, a lot of the young players. I suppose that many of the players that have signed or renewed with Liverpool in recent years would know that they could outlast Klopp. His contract was until 2026, but my understanding is that whether it was written or not, it was really an agreement that was until 2025, with a conversation to be had between all parties. Do we go on to 2026 or do we part at this point? And if that is the case, then, we're 18 months away from when he might have left anyway. And a lot of people you speak in the industry thought 2025 at the latest. Yes, the contract was announced until 2026, but 2025 at the latest. The intensity of his work, the effort he puts into it, the blood, sweat and tears. And so I do think those players would have been thinking of the longer term vision. That said, it does bring really sharp questions for the likes of Salah, Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold, who are out of contract in the summer of 2025. What are they going to do? When are Liverpool going to make the approach to them? What can they tell them about the replacement? And you would know it much better than me. But suddenly, you have questions that weren't necessarily there before. But I don't think by any means it's the breakup of the squad or a complete disaster, because I'd also back Liverpool to make a really good appointment afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it now and think to myself, wow, so Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger, they went at it some years, man. I mean, Klopp's tired now. He's 6 years in. These guys, what was he, 26 years for Sir Alex Ferguson and about 15 or so, 16 years for Wenger. Like, it tells you, it's remarkable really how long they went for at the top doing what they've done. But I don't know, man. Listen, we're going to have to catch up again, right? Because I think there's going to be more that drips out of this in the next few days, David, and we can kind of revisit this, because I think there's going to be players that maybe let things out of their camps, their agents and that are going to be moving and jostling now for right positions, or just to get an idea of where the club are at. So it's going to be an interesting couple of days.
Just one thing I wanted to add on that, Rio. You said those legendary managers, and absolutely, but that was at a time when the clubs were smaller than they are now, and it was perhaps more controllable from their perspective. Since then, we've had COVID, which was draining, as I said, on Klopp, but it's also that these clubs have expanded. There's more commitments, football, commercial, the staff bases are growing bigger. And what's quite interesting at Liverpool, and it's been a narrative around the club, is that with the departure of Michael Edwards and then Julian Ward and the appointment of a German sporting director who was perceived as sort of being an ally to Klopp, that Klopp has gained more and more power. And essentially, he has been running this club from top to bottom in more recent times. And that pretty much puts him in a league of his own within these top clubs where that's not happening elsewhere. And maybe, just maybe, it was time for him to go and hand over the baton and relinquish it. We might not see that level of authority given to the next man or anybody in the future at these clubs, which are monsters and need to have a number of people running the show.
I agree. Well, listen, man, David, thanks for your time as ever. Always informative. Always give us the best knowledge inside the game. So that's 5 Insider, guys. Let us know in the comments your thoughts, where you think Klopp's going to go. Are you happy about this? Are you emotional? One of my friends, Ahmet Zalt, in the WhatsApp group is crying literally right now on my phone about this. He's a mad Liverpool fan. But listen, David, Thank you very much. See you soon,
Pleasure.
man.